Hi, my name is Patty Holden, and I am an anthropologist that has spent many years studying this concept called the medicine wheel. I'm a member of the Cherokee Nation. I come from Oklahoma, and although I'm part Native American, this symbol called the Native American medicine wheel didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I even went to college and got a master's degree in ancient Maya civilization studies. And my focus was still on this concept of a medicine wheel. And after all of those studies, I still didn't really know a lot about the medicine wheel. And it was right after that that I started coming here to some of the classes that were offered here. And it was Bassem that had asked me at some point, because it became known that I was teaching nutrition classes at the time. And he had asked me if I had ever read this book, Medicine of the Prophet, which I had not. So I went and bought a copy of it. And by probably 5 pages in, I knew this was the book that was going to teach me how to read a medicine wheel. Finally. So because I had studied this medicine wheel concept for so long, there were certain key words that kept popping up throughout this book that made me, because you don't hear the word medicine wheel in this book. But there are certain words that you see repeated a lot, like hot, cold, dry, wet, bile, yellow bile, blood, all these words. And because I had studied the ancient Greek medicine wheel, which is what you see here, I started to recognize these words in this book as coming from ancient Greece. And then sure enough, as I started studying what this book was all about, which is why I now am friends with and work with, and she is my doctor. Dr. Chica does the same kind of medicine that is talked about in this book. So this book also has references to Ayurvedic medicine. So in this book, you're having Chinese, Oriental medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and ancient Greek medicine all combined into a resource. And basically, the first 2/3 of the book is how to, like Dr. Chica had mentioned, to use nature to heal your body. Now, she was talking a lot about ozone and PRP injections. I consider, you've heard of the words earth, air, fire, and water, the main elements. In Oriental medicine, they add metal. The Native American medicine wheel also has these elements. The ozone injections would fall under the category of air. I also have friends that work with frequency devices, things that can elevate your electrical frequencies. We are also electricity. I consider the frequency devices to be under the category of fire. It's an energy. I teach nutrition. I teach people how to use food as medicine. I consider the food that you eat to come from earth, because everything you eat should have grown or come from the earth. And one of the most amazing things that I will never figure out, but I'll probably spend the rest of my life trying to figure out, is how does a tree turn dirt into an avocado? It goes from dirt, sucks all the minerals up to the trunk, comes out, and it produces something that is designed beautifully. And that's our food. So when we eat something that came right off of the plant, we are incorporating the earth into our body. So when you hear those words, earth, air, fire, and water, that's what we're talking about. We're using those natural elements that the body recognizes. I'm going to kind of point out some things about this medicine wheel. This class is going to focus on this ancient Greek medicine wheel, and we're going to focus on this season, the winter phlegm season. You'll see at the top where it says winter and phlegm. So I'm hoping that by the end of this class that you have a completely new understanding of what the flu season is, because we're going to talk about what it really is. So if we look clockwise around the wheel, you'll notice it goes winter, spring, summer, and autumn. So we're reading this clockwise. You'll notice that in between winter and spring, you have the word wet, because that's when the rains begin. In between the spring and summer, it's going to turn hot. And then as we go into the autumn, it starts to dry out. Right now, the air is drying out. The humidity is dropping. It feels nicer. You don't sweat when you go outside. Remember that. We don't sweat right now, okay? That's a form of detoxification that is not happening as much as it was a month or two ago. And then as you go into the winter, now the air starts to turn cold. And we live in the subtropics where we aren't really exposed to the harsh winters. But we still have this happening to us. but it's not quite as much as people like up in Maine and Canada. You know, they're going to have more extreme cases. Now, as far as the blood, the bile, the black bile, and the phlegm, this will make more sense as we go through the lecture, but just to kind of point that out, what happens in the springtime to all the plant life, all the green stuff, that's the first color that you see in the spring, is all the green stuff starts to come back. In ancient times, when people ate seasonally, truly seasonally, they would have just came out of a long winter of whatever food they had preserved from the previous year. And, you know, if you really talk to someone, and we're losing these people because they're dying off, but a lot of people who would have been young in the early 1900s, and especially if they remember their grandparents in the late 1800s, and even in wildlife, you'll notice that the animals are a lot thinner at the end of the winter, and then they bulk up through the summer, and by the end of the summer, everybody has gained some weight. As that green stuff starts to come forward in the springtime, people would be a little bit hungry by the end of the winter. And I know this from my own great-grandmother's stories. The first weeds that would come up in the fields would be a weed called poke. I'm talking about Arkansas, right in the middle of the country. There's a weed that comes up in the early spring called poke weed. And it's very toxic if you eat it raw, but they boil it down and they cook it and they eat that. And it was a springtime detox. And then the next things that would come in, they would eat, and the next things that would come in, and they would eat. So if you truly follow the cycle of the seasons, that green stuff that comes in this early spring improves your blood. And we know that a shot of wheatgrass, you've heard of people using wheatgrass shots to improve their blood. Anytime you consume chlorophyll can be converted into red blood cells with one chemical reaction. So if you have low red blood cell count, a shot of wheatgrass, and I know this because I have a friend, one of our students, who does regular blood donating at Red Cross or wherever they do blood donate, the big bus. And she started doing wheatgrass shots between one Saturday and the next Saturday. And she had her, when they take your blood, I guess they give you a report of how your blood is doing, how healthy it is. So she got her red blood cell count one Saturday. She did wheatgrass shots every week, and then did her red blood cell count the following Saturday, and the numbers just went through the roof. So it did make a difference with the red blood cell count. So people who are anemic, they need chlorophyll. So you'll notice that in ancient Greek, they noticed that in the springtime, everybody, all the symptoms, all the diseases started to kind of drop off. And it's because that chlorophyll is being turned into fresh blood. And then as we go through the summer, as we get into the summer, this is when all the fruits and the vegetables will become abundant, and people are able to eat more. And so you start to consume more and more calories, and those calories tend to get stored in the body. This is why the bear at the end of the summer and then going into the fall has gained weight, and then they hibernate all winter long. That excessive calorie intake would have been referred to as yellow bile. This is just my way of interpreting these things. As we get into the autumn and the weather turns dry and cold, that yellow bile starts to putrefy. This is in Medicine of the Prophet. I'm going to bring this forward from one of the chapters. Food that you consume and that gets stored doesn't sit fresh. It starts to putrefy once it's in the body. And so if that gets stuck in the body, now remember what I said, what we stop doing at the end of the summer. We stop sweating. We stay indoors. We usually become less active. This will make more sense as we go through the lecture, but a lot of that bile, if it's not burned off and gotten rid of, it will start to putrefy into what the Greeks would call black bile. If you go into the winter even more and that black bile is not removed, the body's going to continue processing it and decomposing it and turning it into a thick mucus that will eventually have to come out of the body. And when it comes out of the body, your body's going to produce a fever, and you're going to cough, and you're going to sneeze, and you're going to have a runny nose, and all this gunk is going to come out of your body. And so the less toxic you are heading into the winter, the less of an issue you're going to have when that time comes. And we'll talk about what that time is as we move along here. So basically throughout history, and especially when you are talking about the areas where it does in fact get very cold in the winter, and you have high drifts of snow that can last for weeks at a time, and you don't have any break from the cold, you might not see the sun for days at a time because it's just overcast for weeks and weeks and weeks. There grew to be a genuine fear of the winter. Okay, you don't have a fear of the summer quite as much in these ancient cultures or even today. So you have several different words that actually depict different conditions that people would have. Fear of cold is called cryophobia. The fear of snow is chionophobia. The fear of cold air. Have you ever been somewhere where it's like 30 below and you not take a nice whiff of that air and it goes into your throat and instantly freezes all the cells in your throat? That's not fun. So that might make you afraid to walk out in the outside air unless you have something around your face to block that cold air. Driving in the snow or driving in the ice can be very scary. I don't like it. That's one of the reasons I chose not to move back to Oklahoma, was because of those ice storms in the winter and you have no control. And then just basic cabin fever. If you live in Colorado, you often don't go outside for weeks at a time because the snow might be blocking the door shut. You know, they have snow drifts that can come over the house. So in many cultures all over the world, you have these solstice ceremonies in the wintertime. December 21st through December 25th is that time period that all of our ancestral cultures knew that the sun stopped going one way and started coming back the other. So it was a great relief when that sun started coming back. So there's all these celebrations during this time of the year. And a lot of it was to cheer everybody up. You know, you might have a farmer down there that sells wheat. You might have one way down there, 10 miles, that grows some potatoes, and one over here that grows chickens, but they can't get to each other. But if they get together once during the winter, they can trade and go back and be okay for the rest of the winter. There is a website down here that you might want to write down because I'm not going to cover everything in this picture today. It's called GreekMedicine.net. And GreekMedicine.net was the name of the person who created this website is David Osborne. And there's a page on there that talks all about him. But he is a pretty fascinating person. And this website is very extensive. And I someday would like to bring him here to be a keynote speaker about all of this. Okay, so this is coming out of Medicine of the Prophet. There's an entire chapter in Medicine of the Prophet. I'm going to pass one copy around so you guys can thumb through it. This is a newer copy that's not falling apart, but I'll just let it pass around. There is a chapter in there on plague. The whole chapter is about plague. It's very short. We're in the middle of a plague. What have I done? What's in that book? So if it's in that book, I'm good. So I just pulled out some of the highlights of this chapter to point out what we've been talking about already, starting with number 1. Ulcers, inflammations, and abscesses are symptoms of the plague, but they are not the disease itself. However, since the physicians have only properly understood the external symptoms, they have considered them to be the plague itself. So we're in the middle of a pandemic where we're being told that the symptoms that happen are the result of an infection coming from outside. And what I'm going to try to convince you is that this is actually coming from the inside, that you're not catching anything. The physicians have nothing whereby to repel these illnesses and their causes any more than they have anything to explain them. Now remember, this book is like 1,500 years old. They're already complaining about the physicians 1,500 years ago. Okay. Corruption of the air, because remember in Hippocrates' time, which was ancient Greece, which is before this, that's when the actual division between allopathic and holistic medicine happened. And from that point forward, Hippocrates was always food. The food is your medicine. The food is your medicine. And then the people who went the other way, we didn't have big pharma medications back then, but we had herbs and herbal medications and tinctures and things like that. And the point of these doctors was to block the symptoms, to just stop the symptoms and put the person comfortable, which if you're in an emergency situation, the pain might need to be blocked, but you don't want the person to be continually taking the pain medication forever. So that's when the original break-off happened. So we're talking 500, 600, 800 years later, and the two sides are still fighting with each other. The corruption of the air. Now remember, when Dr. Chica was talking about using that ozone and using oxygen in the body to heal, okay? Now here comes out of Medicine of the Prophet. What's actually happening when the person has ulcers, inflammations, and abscesses, which are all the symptoms of pretty much everything, even something like a lung infection, when it's inflamed, that's an inflammation. So when the body does these things, it's typically because it's trying to heal itself. But if you have the corruption of the air, this is one part of the overall effective cause of the plague. And the corruption of these essences of the air is the prerequisite to the occurrence of pestilence. Its pollution comes about because its essence changes into an unhealthy state. One of the negative qualities predominates over it, such as putrefaction, decay, or poisoning. Remember those words that I was talking about, the black bile, the yellow bile becoming the black bile? Okay, that's what's happening. Dr. Warburg was one of the first doctors that said that a cancer cell is a cell that no longer gets oxygen. Okay? So if you have corruption of the air, you're going to have putrefaction, decaying, and poisoning. Whoop. So remember in the medicine wheel, if you look at your picture, remember as we head into the fall, that yellow bile starts to turn into black bile. The reason that in the autumn that this happens is that the sharp bilious superfluities. Bilious is basically an adjective coming from the word bile. That means bile. It's bilious. Superfluities means an excessive amount of fluids. So you have an excessive amount of bilious fluids and other fluids, plasma, whatever, mucus, and they collect during the summer season. That's what that yellow bile is. They collect, and they are not dissolved at the end of the summer. Okay? Now you've got a lot of stored calories. In the fall, the miasma, the change occurs because the air is cold, and the vapors and superfluities, which were wont to dissolve freely during the summer, now become thick and murky. Thus, they are restricted, become heated, and putrefy, bringing about the putrid diseases. So your body is processing all of this. This is especially so when the body which they encounter is susceptible to them by being flaccid, sedentary, and replete. Such bodies can hardly hope to escape unharmed. So let's say that if you're the bear out in nature, you're gonna eat all summer long, and then you're gonna do what all winter long? Sleep. They fast. They don't eat all winter long. They stop. And that's why when they wake up in the spring, I think they put some berries and foods over in the corner. If they wake up, they have a little snack and go back to sleep. But in the springtime, when they come out of their cave, they're usually very thin. And they go back to eating, and they gain weight throughout the summer again. Humans don't do this. Humans will continue to eat all winter long, even though this same process is still happening. So, and on top of that, we are no longer eating seasonally. We're eating the same stuff in the summer that we eat in the middle of the winter. So our bodies are not feeling the cycle of foods like they used to, okay? There is all kinds of studies that show that eating strawberries is supposed to happen when they're in season because your body responds to the chemicals and thinks it's summer. And if you eat those in the middle of the winter, you're throwing your body into that same thing. Oh, it's summer, but it's not. It's December. So it's important to eat in the season to keep your body in this cycle. The more you live within the cycle of nature, the more you will know how your body is, do you really have a problem, or are you just responding to the environment? Because you're going to be cleaner and able to respond to the environment more honestly. The healthiest season in this respect is the spring. Remember, everything green starts coming back. Everybody starts to eat the green. Everybody's blood gets richer. Hippocrates has said, in the autumn occur the fiercest and most deadly of the sicknesses, while spring is the most healthy of all seasons, when the fewest deaths occur. It is customary for pharmacists and those who prepare dead bodies to fall into debt and borrow money in the spring and summer when autumn is their springtime. It is true that if you check the hospital records, most people, what is the month that most people die? Give me a guess. Based on everything we've talked about, what is the... It's January. January is historically the month when most people die. That's also when they like to time pandemics. Oh, look, everybody's sick. It must be a pandemic. Okay, there is a video here. Do we have time to watch it, or like, okay. Because I don't want you to just take my, for this.
If you manage a team, Monday.com will transform the way you work.
So instead of thinking that, I want you to think, instead of the fact that someone caught a virus and now their body is having this reaction, I want you to just hear what he says and think maybe toxicity and mucus production is the problem. And hydration.
Good morning, Lauren Watson from the Tango with Wellness Center in Costa Rica. I've been asked this morning to address a simple question, sometimes simple, sometimes not. Why do I believe disease exists? Arnold Ehret suggested that disease was a result of the clogged system, mucus, etc. Natural hygiene has always said that toxemia is the only disease. That every disease that we know of is actually some manifestation of toxemia, of a toxic body. And certainly, I can understand where these two viewpoints come from. There's no question that more than 3,000 people I've fasted, every single person has clearly and obviously eliminated toxic materials from their body. So we know that toxins are real, they're present, there are studies that prove this. Some of you may be aware, I've talked about this before, in a study performed some 10 or more years ago in North America. They looked for 75 persistent environmental toxins, nasty, nasty chemicals, things like dioxin, PCBs, some of the most dangerous chemicals ever invented, and most of which were outlawed in North America decades ago. What did they find? The average person's walking around with more than 50% of these substances. That's 38 or more of these substances in their body in measurable quantity. Okay, so that's some pretty heavy toxic stuff. Hygienists have always said that, in fact, the endogenous toxins created in the body, like waste products from cellular metabolism, okay, cell poop, is the greatest source of toxicity in the body. Now, that may have been true when some of these guys were writing 50, 60, 80 years ago. It may be less true today.
Let me just make a comment on that. What he's saying is that each and every day your body is doing metabolizing and doing all kinds of stuff, and the cells are working, and they're always excreting acids and leftover waste and things like that. You are supposed to sleep at night for 6 to 8 hours. You're supposed to get a good night's sleep every night, because all night long your body is going to, your lungs, your liver, and then, or it's actually the liver first and then your lungs, and then finally when you wake up in the morning you should have a nice bowel movement. You should have a bowel movement when you wake up in the morning, because all night long your body went through and sorted through all of the cellular waste that had accumulated the day before, gathered it all up, all the food that you ate, and then it gets rid of it, and then you're ready for the next day. If you're not having a bowel movement in the morning, something is wrong. If you're not sleeping at night, that process is not happening. And that is something that people don't think about. If you're not getting a good night's sleep at night, your body is not able to process the previous day's accumulation of toxicity, which means now it's reserved for the next day. And now the next night, your body has to go through that day and the day before, and the next night, and the next night. And some people, after a really traumatic experience, will go months and months without sleep, and the body accumulates a lot of toxic material because it's not filtering out through the night. Your body cannot clean itself out while you're all tensed up in fight or flight. So even if you're on a clean, organic, healthy diet, if you're not resting at night, your body's still accumulating the toxicity that he's talking about. Okay?
Given the toxicity of the environment that we've created, it may now be that there's more coming in from outside, exogenous sources, from all the garbage people eat, from all the pollution in the air and water, from all the microwave signals, the electromagnetic radiation bombarding us, so many household cleaning products, etc. There's so many things that are affecting us today that they may well now have overwhelmed the endogenous sources of toxicity in the body. And for many years, I would have said, did say, yes, Hygienists are absolutely right. It's about toxemia. Now, toxemia is still a huge factor. I would suggest that this is another place, and I've talked about Eric before. Yesterday, I think there was a question regarding Eric. Eric, as I said, was one of my first mentors and heroes. His first two main books, Rational Fasting and Mucusless Diet, were very influential for me. And mucus is an issue, but mucus isn't the problem. Mucus is a symptom of a problem. Eric was not right about this. He was not right about a lot of things. Again, let's give him a break. He was writing 80, 90, 100 years ago. There was a lot less known. The body produces mucus on purpose in order to eliminate toxins. So which comes first, mucus or toxins? Toxins come first, not mucus, okay? Mucus is not the problem, it's an intelligent response to a problem. If the body's not toxic and we're not consuming garbage.
So if we go to the hospital and our lungs are all full of mucus and we have pneumonia, what do they typically tell us is causing that? A virus or a bacteria, right? I am arguing that this is the problem. You are toxic and your body is going through that annual cycle, and it's that time of the year when everybody's body is trying to eliminate the toxicity. It's not something coming, and one of the famous quotes from Hippocrates is that disease does not come from without, it comes from within, okay? So if you want to watch the rest of that, it's a very good lecture, what really causes disease, how toxicity, mucus, and he goes on to talk about hydration. Let's go just a little bit longer. Just a few.
It doesn't make a bunch of mucus. It's not like it's just making mucus for no reason, and that's the issue. It's not. Okay, the mucus isn't the problem. The mucus is a symptom of the problem. But I would say, and it occurred to me over really some point over the last 10 years, since we started measuring cellular hydration. Okay, in fact, to give credit where credit is due, it started for me when I came across a book probably 15 years ago now. I don't remember exactly when, maybe 20, called Your Body's Many Cries for Water. Anyone see this book? Yes. Written by a man named Dr. Batman. It was actually Dr. Batman Gelage. He was Iranian. He's passed away. But because his name was so hard to pronounce, everyone called him Dr. Batman. And Dr. Batman claims to have helped thousands of his clients around Washington, D.C., his patients, eliminate disease, was what he said. I believe eliminating symptoms is probably more like it, by getting the body better hydrated.
Just water.
Doing that.
Just water.
He didn't pay much attention to diet. Okay? He didn't pay much attention, as far as I know, I mean, I've read his books, to emotions or any of these other factors that I believe are critically important. What he paid attention to is the fact that dehydrated body.
If I don't want to make a video like this of myself, I can just make a really cute.
Yeah.
Don't function very well. And I believe he was exactly right. Now, again, you could say that dehydration is just a symptom, right? Dehydration is caused by poor diet. And it's primarily what we consume. There's other things too that we do, that humans do, that make us.
Okay, so he's going to go on talking about hydration, and we are too. So, okay, so think about it. Look at your medicine wheel and notice that in the winter time, or in the fall, it gets dry and cold, right? Okay, so you don't normally have a flu season in the fall when it's dry and cold. But what's happening is the stage is setting itself inside your body. Because what happens, think about it with concrete. What's the difference between concrete when it's hot versus cold? In the summertime, concrete expands. And in the wintertime, concrete contracts. Your body's doing a lot of the same stuff. In the cold, dry air, you can become very dehydrated. And then, believe it or not, the flu season doesn't really start until late in the winter when the rains start. You have to have wet and cold for mucus production. So you won't have a flu season, but everybody's getting dehydrated and the mucus is stuck because mucus cannot move when you're dehydrated. Okay, but then when that rain happens and all of a sudden you have more moisture in the air and the body has access to that, it's going to create mucus and then cause you to cough it up. That's the flu season. Okay, so this is coming from Greek medicine, the website greekmedicine.net. This is the page for phlegm. Phlegm is basically just mucus in an excessive amount. So phlegm and mucus are the same thing, except that phlegm is when you have too much mucus. You are always going to have mucus in the mucosa tract, which is in your it goes through your nose, your mouth, your throat, all through your intestines, and out through the other side. That should all be coated with a nice slimy layer of mucus, which I specialize in because I make fermented foods. And you notice the Lactobacillus plantarum. That bacteria is the one that creates that gel coating that's supposed to, this would be a nice, oh no, that's a different problem with the sclerosis. The Lactobacillus plantarum is a bacteria that shows up in any fermented food. It's very common. It's in sauerkraut, it's in beets, it's in kimchi. And it creates the gel coating that seals the inside of your intestinal tract. Okay. Now, if you damage that, you're going to have a leaky gut. That's what leaky gut is. You need to put that bacteria back in your gut. So that is normal. When you have phlegm, excessive mucus that comes out of the gut and crawls up the body and goes into the lungs, that's where the mucus is coming from. If someone has mucus in the lungs, I guarantee you their mucus is also coming out in the mucosa tract, also in excessive amounts. The serous mucus is the watery mucus part of the body that is made by the liver. It circulates via the blood and lymph vessels. It's known as plasma, interstitial, and synovial fluids. Okay, so you have two different types of fluid in the body, mucus and serous. When you have excessive or morbid amounts of both of these, excessive or morbid phlegm is produced by cold, wet, sluggish conditions. Look at there, right in the middle of winter where it says phlegm, cold and wet. So we have to have that cold and wet environment to be able to have this excessive mucus stage. This is also, remember the cold weather is also slowing your body down. It slows the bear down in the winter. The bear actually hibernates all winter. We are also a little bit slower in the winter times than we are in the summer times. So our digestion and our metabolism is also working at a slower pace. So if you want to counter all of this during the winter, if you're not sweating, this is a good time of the year to use infrared saunas and sweat. Make yourself sweat. If your digestion is not working and your metabolism is slowing down, you might need to exercise and you might need to eat foods that metabolize faster instead of heavy foods that take a long time to eat. I just put myself on a 6-day juice fast to clear out garbage at the end of the summer so that as I go into the winter, since I started living like this, I don't get seasonal allergies. I don't have allergies in the spring. I haven't had it in years. And it's because I don't allow this junk to accumulate in my body and sit there all winter long. Phlegm can invade outside of the mucosa tract and into the entire organism. So this is coming from Greek medicine. If a person has pneumonia, excessive mucus and fluids in the lungs, do a colon cleanse. Help get this stuff out of the intestinal tract so that the levels of mucus in the whole body start to come back down to normal. But what normally happens when you go to the hospital with something like mucus in the lungs is they will give you antibiotics. That's one of the first things they always do, because to them, one of the common bacteria they will find in the lungs during that type of situation is tuberculosis. Okay. Now, a doctor is going to tell you that tuberculosis is the cause of all that mucus in your lungs, okay? Tuberculosis is always in your body. It's always present. Candida is in your body. It's always present. H. pylori is in your body. It's always present. But when you go to the doctor and they diagnose you with H. pylori, you didn't just catch H. pylori. What's happened is the bacteria in your gut is out of whack. You're feeding all the wrong guys. You're killing all the bad guys. And those antibiotics will kill all the good bacteria. Where was I going with that? They kill all the bacteria. Oh, yeah, the pneumonia. So tuberculosis is a bacteria. The point of the bacteria are garbage cleaners. If you have excessive bacteria in the body, it's because you have excessive mucus in the body. What do bacteria eat? Mucus. They're helping you digest that garbage out of your lungs. When the mucus is gone, the tuberculosis count goes back down to normal, okay? So the tuberculosis didn't cause the mucus. The excessive toxicity that accumulates in your body day after day, month after month, year after year is causing your body to create mucus. And when there's mucus, the tuberculosis count goes up because it's like food. They're not trying to go after you, they're going after the mucus. And the mucus is going to basically keep you from breathing at some point. So you need the tuberculosis bacteria in the body. Tuberculosis is the last stage of lung cancer. Tuberculosis eats tumors. I know these things from personal experience. You have to have a bacterial infection at the end of the tumor stage to digest the tumor, okay? Mine was a breast tumor. I have pictures of it. It was red, it was infected, it was oozing blood. She helped me with her ozone. We just killed it, and then the body had to get rid of it. But because I know that bacteria are needed during this process, you have to have the bacteria in the body to heal completely. I didn't do anything. I didn't take anything. I didn't go to a doctor. I just let the thing do what it was supposed to do. And as a result, you can't tell anything ever happened to me. The skin, there's no scar tissue, nothing. So I encourage you that if you do have a situation where excessive mucus is the problem, that you consider going on a detox instead of taking antibiotics, that you consider drinking a lot of lemon water, because lemon can dissolve bile. Lemon is citric acid can actually dissolve bile. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. Diseases of phlegm. If you go to the doctor, you will be told that you have any of these diseases: asthma, bronchitis, rhinitis, sinusitis, hay fever, respiratory allergies, food allergies, cold and flu, coughing and lung congestion, swelling, coughing and lung tumors. Tumors swell up in January because that's when the body is congested more. Water retention, oliguria, leukorrhea, white vaginal discharges. A doctor is going to try to diagnose you with one of those. Okay, an ancient Greek doctor would tell you, oh, you have excessive phlegm. Get rid of the phlegm. Okay, and that's basically a cleanse, a body cleanse. The causes of diseases of phlegm: cold and or damp weather. There you have it again, right in the middle. You have cold and wet. Dust, molds, yeast, and fungi. Now the yeast, and the fungi are always in your body. You can't get away from them. And they only become active when there's dead and rotting organic material. If you allow yourself to become all junked up with a bunch of junk, and you have places in the body that are not getting oxygen, and the cells start to die, something has to get rid of that dead material out of your body. So that's when the fungi come in. That's their job, is to eat dead stuff. That's what a tumor is. Okay, now when all of that is gone, you still are stuck with now you got a tumor in your body. What's going to happen? What I just talked about, a bacterial infection. The bacterial comes in afterwards and eats the fungus, and now you're back down to normal. So there's a natural system that happens in your body. It's the same thing that happens in the soil. When it rains and rains and rains and rains, and it changes the pH of the soil, what starts popping up through the grass? Mushrooms. The soil is fixing itself. And if you leave it alone, like modern landscapers want to go and kill the mushrooms, right? Just like oncologists want to kill the tumors. No, let it finish doing what it's doing. They're nitrogen fixers. They're solving a problem. They're eating up all the dead stuff that rotted. When all that stuff is gone, then a bacteria is going to come through and dissolve the tumor, or the mushrooms back down. And then you come back 2 weeks later and then everything's fine. That same system happens in the body. To me, that's what cancer is. You're growing a mushroom, and then your body will dispose of it when it's finished doing what it's supposed to do. Your body is not stupid. It knows exactly what it's doing. But these medications that block the symptoms, which I think is the next slide, are where people go wrong. Okay, accumulation sites. Because of its sluggish, passive nature, phlegm may accumulate in the organism quite subtly and asymptomatically for a long time before provoking any acute crisis. Remember what I said: if you don't sleep at night and your body doesn't cleanse from the day before, now you have 2 days worth, now you have 3 days worth, now you have 4 days worth. So a person who is not resting properly can have phlegm building silently for a long time. And then all of a sudden, it decides to fix itself all at once, and you have this big flu. And that with the flu shots blocking that, the body never gets to complete that. So it just, that accumulates year after year. Chronic or severe atrabilious corruption of the lymph is one of the major causative factors associated with hard swellings, tumors, and cancer in Greek medicine. So we don't know it causes cancer. Well, you're toxic, and your body is trying to fix itself, and then that's what it's trying to do. And your detoxification organs are not working, or this stuff would be not backing up inside the body. A chronic disease is one that persists for a long time. A chronic disease is one lasting 3 months or more. What is a season? About 3 months. If you have a disease that goes from this season to this season to this season, that's chronic. A lot of people have just seasonal allergies once a year. You know the exact month that you're going to have allergies, right? That can go on for a while, but then eventually it's going to become chronic. Okay. But like I said, if you stay clean and you know what you're doing and you counter, basically it's playing the opposites. If it's hot in the summer and cold in the winter, try to do things in the winter that would bring your heat up, like the infrared sauna. If you're not sweating in the winter, make yourself sweat. You have to actually proactively do things for yourself throughout the winter to keep your body from succumbing to that environment. Okay. I highly recommend that you learn who I'm not going to have you watch this second video, but Dr. Morse he's incredible. He's a naturopath right here in Central Florida somewhere. I haven't found him, but we're going to find him. And he has some amazing videos that talk about the healing crisis. Okay. Some people call it the flu. I call it a healing crisis. Some people call it cancer. I call it a healing crisis. Some people might call it multiple sclerosis. Your body is trying to heal from something. Okay? And you can do it if you get with the right people. Okay? You need to look on YouTube for a video. I'll think of it before we leave. Terry Wahls, TerryWahls, Wahls, Terry Wahls. She's a physician who got multiple sclerosis. Have you seen her? She was a physician, and she got so bad she was in the wheelchair and could only drive with one hand. And she said, I'm done with these doctors. Nothing's working. I just keep getting worse. And she changed her diet. She went on a paleo diet. She started focusing on omega-3s. And now she goes all over the world. She gives lectures. She's walking all over the stage. You can't tell anything ever happened to her. So it is completely reversible. All right. The word influenza originally comes from Italy, and it means influence of the cold, not influence of the virus. Influence of the cold. Your body is actually very intelligent. Number of people with the flu goes up after a dry period of weather. Okay, so here we have October, flu cases. November, flu cases. This is pretty much, they know when the flu season is going to hit. December, it starts to go up. Here's your winter season. January. Now, usually there's more deaths here. But look at what happens in February. That's where the rains kick in. It's still cold, but you just watch. This winter, it'll be dry. Of course, it rains here a little bit more than other places, but traditionally, the rains start right here at the beginning of spring. Remember what I said? You have to have cold and wet for mucus production. Cold and wet makes the mucus production goes up. Everybody runs to the hospital. They've got pneumonia. You just watch this year, because everybody's been wearing these masks nonstop. Every breath a cell died. Because you got just a little bit less oxygen than normal. And while you might not have noticed it, every breath a cell died. And now all that has to come out. Not to mention the stuff that's going in and out that's stuck to the mask. The wetness of it. Okay, so is this a disease or is this a healing crisis? Very predictable, okay? Because this happens because of the weather, not because of a virus. So here are all the signs and symptoms of a healing crisis. And you'll notice they are also the same signs and symptoms of COVID. Same stuff. So when your body decides to go into a healing crisis, guess what they're detecting in the blood, in the test? They're detecting particles. Okay, did that particle cause this? Or is that particle just part of the healing mechanism? Now that you know that tuberculosis, a bacteria, eats the mucus out of your lungs, do you consider it your friend or foe? Friend. Okay, from Medicine of the Prophet. There are 10 things which, if blocked or restrained, cause harm. Blood when it is agitated. Semen when it is moving. Urine, feces, wind, vomiting, sneezing, sleep, hunger, and thirst. Now, because of fasting, I'm going to assume that that doesn't necessarily mean just every time you're hungry you need to eat. That hunger probably means more like a malnourished state, okay? But let me give you an example. We have vomiting over there. So a person gets chemotherapy and they start throwing up. What do they give them? Anti-nausea medication. We can't have you throwing that poison out, right? Think about the wind. That's the air that is basically the air that you're breathing. What are the masks doing? Restricting that, okay? Feces. If you're not having a bowel movement every morning or at least every day, something is obstructing that. Something is wrong. I have worked with people who can't remember the last time they had a bowel movement, yet they continue to eat every single day. See the problem? Something's not coming out. Okay, and then this comes from the chapter of, there's a whole chapter in that book called Dealing with Fever. And fever is another symptom. Fever is another thing that causes some people distress and they think that there's something wrong. I'm telling you, fever is the most perfectly natural thing that could ever happen to you. In fact, if your body needs to make a fever, you need to just let it do it and realize that the body can in fact gain great advantage from fever, an advantage which cannot be achieved by medication. It often happens that a quotidian or a putrid fever, the chapter talks about the different types of fever that a person could get. You can have a localized fever. You can have a fever everywhere. A fever can cause the decoction of thick matters, all that stuff that's stuck in the body that won't come out. That could not otherwise reach a state of coction, or it can cause the opening of some obstruction, which deobstructant medicines could not achieve. As for ophthalmic, Ramad, I forgot to look these up so I would understand these again.
Of the phlegm nerve.
It's the eye, right?
The branches of
Recent or at an advanced stage, fever can cure most kinds speedily and in an amazing way. It is useful in the treatment of palsy, facial paralysis, and convulsions from a plethora of humors and many other diseases which are caused by thick superfluities. Okay, one of the confusing things that happens to people when they start to go on a natural or like a detox, like let's say you've never done eating detoxification, you've never done any holistic medicine or any kind of food as medicine, and you change your life, which is a good choice, okay? But the goal is to get your immune system stronger, right? And if you haven't had a fever in a while, and you are boosting your immune system, what do you think eventually might happen? You might actually not catch a fever. You actually will. I tell people, especially when I'm working with someone who has terminal cancer can be reversed. I've seen it happen, but they have to do it. They can't depend on this. It's not someone else doing it for you. You have to do it. Number one, how much do you want to live? That's number one, because like if you don't want to live, you're not going to do anything for yourself. But you can reverse anything if you really want to. But the goal is, after you've decided to do it, is to improve your immune system, because that's what's going wrong in the first place. You have to improve your immune system so that the whole body can fix itself. So you go on detox, you start eating probiotic food like the fermented foods. And I always tell people, especially because my program is like 3 months. You can kill a tumor and get rid of cancer in 3 months. And then you're left with a weak body that you have to build. I was 96 pounds a year ago. I'm now 115. So I've rebuilt. What was I saying?
you can heal like cancer in 3 months.
Oh yeah. So right around the middle of the second month, I tell them if you do what I tell you to do, you should be able to you might have a fever in the middle of the second month. And sure enough, they do. If they do what they're supposed to do, they have a fever. Now, if I hadn't told them that this is a good thing, we want your body to do a fever so it can fix all this. This is God fixing you. This is when the Calvary says, let me fix this. You have to open that channel up. But we're always blocking fevers. We're taking medications to bring the fevers down. We're afraid of the fevers. We think there's something wrong. No, if you can't produce a fever, you're going to die. You have to be able to produce. This is heat coming back. This is your body coming back alive. This is the real healing. So when they hit their fever, they're all excited, like, I got a fever. And they're not afraid of it, okay? All right, so I looked up best remedies for the flu. It just happens to be the same things that I would do during the winter. And these also happen to be the best ways to get rid of phlegm. So it just so happens that the best ways to get rid of phlegm happen to be the also ways to deal with the flu. Obviously, if you catch a flu, I should not say catch. You don't catch a flu. If you develop flu symptoms, you are probably vitamin D deficient. That's one of the number one causes that people actually get sick in the winter, is because we have shorter days. It's not so bad here, but up north, they don't go out in the sun for weeks at a time. And if they do, they don't have it, you know, they're just all bundled up. They don't want to be exposed to the elements. So the vitamin D levels start to plummet. You can fix that one with supplements really, really easily. But I want you to notice that if this month kept going, if February repeated itself 6 more times, we would all start dying. This is the beginning of humans faltering to the elements of this winter. So it's a good thing that it does start warming up, because this is the point where the bodies are and this is why people die during this time. Okay? So it's important to get through the winter. All right, sweating is a great thing. Again, you're not sweating in the winter, so make yourself sweat. Once or twice a week would be way more than enough. Maybe once a week. Probiotics, fermented foods. Our ancestors used to ferment their food, and then they would have that over the winter. I ferment it. It's all talked about in the brochure. But this is putting the bacteria back in the gut that improves your immune system. This is 80% of your immune system is the gut bacteria. It's not the white blood cells or the T cells. It's the microbiome, okay? If you grow a tumor, you better hope that you haven't had rounds and rounds and rounds and rounds of antibiotics in your past and wiped out all the bacteria in your gut, because who's going to eat the tumor? You know? So if a tumor just grows and grows and grows and grows and grows, maybe a person needs to start eating fermented foods to get that bacteria back in the body that would eat that tumor. Maybe that's the problem. And then you have your teas. Rest and sleep is as important as, it's 50%. And you know, we've already talked about it in this class. And then fasting. What naturally happens to the body when you're sick is you lose your appetite, right? Most people do not have a big appetite when they're sick. And in my class that I taught last weekend, which was Food is Medicine, we went over foods that are extremely important during this to keep a person nourished. Because if you don't have the right nutrition going in the body, it takes longer to get over the cold, okay? Bone broth. Don't wait until someone's sick to make it. Nobody wants to eat a steak or a big piece of chicken when they're sick, but they'll sip on a little cup of bone broth with some sea salt in it, and they're getting a lot of nutrition without having to eat a lot of food. A little shot of wheatgrass, a little 1 ounce shot of wheatgrass can provide like a whole pile of vitamins and minerals. So you can actually go to liquid nutrition and fast when you're on the flu, and it will greatly speed up the time that you're sick. And also lemon water. I already put it up there. I just know myself. Citrus, lemon, and grapefruit. Because what does citric acid dissolve? Bile, excessive mucus. So you want to definitely be putting some lemon in your water. Help your body out. Don't block it. Help get this stuff out. Chronic dehydration this is what actually leads to gallbladder and liver stones, kidney stones. Remember the hydration part, okay? Bile gets really thick and hard, and it starts to coagulate into stones. simply because you're not hydrating yourself enough. And remember, the doctor he was talking about was able to cure people all kinds of stuff just by making them drink a lot of water. And it was probably good, really clean water. Your liver makes 1 quart of bile per day. People who have had their gallbladder removed do not have a storage container for that, okay? But your gallbladder is supposed to store that. And then each time you eat anything with fat, it's going to pump a big squirt of that out and help alkalize those acids. If you don't have a gallbladder doing that, every time you eat, it's burning little holes in the upper part of your intestinal tract because there's nothing dumping this alkalizing bile into there. Chronic dehydration can cause bile to become thick and dry in the gallbladder. Those who do have a gallbladder have to watch out because dehydration will cause all that gall to start hardening and becoming stones. There is a gallbladder flush that you can do. We have a student that did it, and literally he said hundreds and hundreds of these green stones. That's what they look like. They're that color because that's the bile that the liver makes is a yellowish green color. If you've ever seen anybody that has jaundice from liver failure, they're yellow from head to toe. That's because all of that liquid came out of the liver and into the body. So the following are some of the most common causes of biliary obstruction. Another thing that happens in January, and you'll notice if you have anybody that has a chronic condition of liver bile obstruction issues, January and February is going to probably be when they're most likely going to go to the doctor. Because again, the environment is causing the body to clam up and get cold, and so nothing's moving like it should. So just keep these things in mind as we go into the future. In the next few years, you'll probably have somebody say, oh, I have to go to the doctor because I have liver bile obstruction. And note what month it is. Okay, it's probably not going to be July. It's probably going to be in the middle of the winter. The number 1 cause of gallstones, biliary obstruction. Oh yeah, the gallstones are the number 1 cause of biliary obstruction. The number 1 cause of gallstones is dehydration. So that's how you can trace that back. And then you have all these other reasons, but that's the main one is gallstones. How do you know that you would have a gallbladder problem without having to go to the doctor? Have you ever heard of the ketogenic diet? The ketogenic diet is a diet that is really high fat, no carbs, no sugar, no bread, no carbs. It's not something that people stay on for life. It's not like, it's a tool. It's simply a tool. You can stop terminal cancer very quickly with the ketogenic diet because cancer needs sugar. You're not going to give it any sugar, and you can kill that. People with epileptic seizures can end the seizures if they go on a ketogenic diet. So it is useful, but it's a really difficult diet to do. But most people go on the ketogenic diet to lose weight because you can lose weight very fast, and then you have to get off of it because you can keep losing weight. But if you're not losing weight and you're on a ketogenic diet, something's wrong with your gallbladder. That's how you would know. You go on a ketogenic diet and it's not doing anything for you. So that's signifying that something might be wrong with your gallbladder. The gallbladder is completely ignored by medical professions who consider it a non-essential organ. They took my mother's out when she was in her 30s, and she ended up dying from gastrointestinal cancer in the upper intestinal tract. Everything was blocked. It wasn't moving. She had no gallbladder helping her digest. So years later, not having a gallbladder will come back. It'll come back on you. Bile is an emulsifier. You can't absorb the fats in the diet that you eat unless you're producing the bile. Did you want to say something? Okay. The liver makes and excretes more than a quart of this thick greenish yellow liquid, and it sends it to the gallbladder for storage. It is also a toxic waste sponge. Bile can go through your whatever you ate, and it can pick up chemicals, hormones, drugs, heavy metals, and other toxins. So it will actually detoxify your body. So it's important to keep your liver healthy because that's where this bile is coming from. Now, congested bile, after all of that, if the bile in your body is congested, it can link to a host of seemingly unrelated symptoms, including hormone dysfunction, hypothyroidism. Everybody says, I have hypothyroidism. What do I do? Hot flashes, constipation, depression, migraines. Now, doctors are going to tell you that you got drugs for all these, right? But those who improve their bile enjoy a whopping 53% bump in metabolism. The worse your bile gets, the more toxic and nutritionally compromised your body becomes. By the time you have a 75% bile deficiency, you've already begun developing allergies, arthritis, and or inflammation in your joints and muscles. By the time your deficiency hits 90%, you may be receiving a cancer diagnosis or another equally devastating illness. You're dehydrated and you're not detoxifying the body, and it's causing all of this to go down. And that is the end of that. That's just the bibliography. So, does everybody understand how the winter affects you a little differently now, and how this might be a bigger problem than something flying around the air randomly? And this actually should help you understand why people with pre-existing conditions, I mean, just a cold will kill some people, okay? Because they're so blocked up. They're so full of mucus already. Anything that causes the mucus to go up even more is just going to suffocate them. So I guess the moral of this is, instead of attacking it from the outside with antibiotics and thinking that the viruses and the bacteria are the problem, maybe think that the mucus and the toxicity is the bigger problem. Because if you don't have a lot of toxicity in the body, you're not going to create a lot of mucus, and you're not going to have a lot of these winter phlegm issues, okay? And to be an ancient Greek doctor, if somebody came up to you and you were an ancient Greek doctor and they had excessive phlegm, really all they did was they knew how, they didn't treat the symptoms. They got, if the bowel movements weren't happening, they would get those moving. There's things that you do to get the bowels moving again. There's things that you do to get the kidneys urinating again. There's things that, if you know, you can make, like Native Americans, if somebody is sick in the middle of the winter, they put them in a sweat house and make them sweat. They build sweat houses. So it's not just the Greeks that came up with these things, but an ancient Greek doctor would have taken a sick person and cleaned everything out and let the body heal itself. Like she was saying, she's not the healer, but she's getting this garbage out, and then the body fixes itself after that. And until you're probably in your 90s to 100s, the human body is designed to live to 120 years old. If you take really, really good care of it, you should have no disease all the way to the end. You're not designed to have disease. You only have disease when you're clogged up with toxicity and mucus. But if you take care of yourself really, really, really well, and you eat the foods that are right for your body and not the junk food that's being sold today, you should be able to live to at least 100 without disease. And so the Greek doctors would have, think of it as like a car. If you have a car that is 75 years old and it runs like a clunker, and it sounds like a clunker, and you take it to the mechanic and they do a complete tune-up, they don't change anything. They don't take this out and replace it with a new part. They just clean everything out, put new oil, everything new, and it's called a tune-up. It's an expensive, it's not just a regular oil treatment. You actually get the whole engine cleaned up again, and now you've got another 100,000 miles on your car. That's really what you're doing when you clear out the mucus and the toxicity of your body. And you will always go down to your weight, the weight that your body wants to be, which makes me think, I forgot to show you this one thing here. This is 5 pounds. So when someone goes on a diet and they say, I just need to lose 5 pounds, I'm only 5 pounds overweight. The only thing that your body stores is toxins. It does not store nutrition. It uses nutrition, okay? But anything that it cannot use, and that might be toxic to your blood, it's going to shove it into a fat cell and store it. And then later you'll have to get rid of it manually. But this is 5 pounds. It's only 5 pounds. So if you are only 5 pounds overweight, hold something that's worth 5 pounds and imagine 5 pounds of fat weighing that much. That's how much. And it's an ugly thought to think about, but that's what your body is carrying in toxicity. That's toxicity, 5 pounds of toxicity. And I'm feeling this and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. And some people, 5 pounds is not that much. So getting that out of your body is going to eliminate most of the symptoms of anything that you might currently have. Okay, yes.
About the water, do you get a water filter?
The water that I drink?
Yeah, the water that from the faucet is not good.
I live.
Do you get a filter, water filter?
Yes, I would. Now I won't drink city water.
Okay.
because of the fluoride and because of the chlorine. And you can get filters to remove those things, and then I would be okay with it. But I live in the country, and I have a well that goes in the ground, and then it goes through a big filter, and then it goes through a Kangen machine. So it goes through 2 filters. But I consider, yeah, earth, air, fire, and water. Her ozone shots are the air. My nutrition is your earth. The frequencies is your fire, but the water.
But there's so many water filters. We don't even know which one to get.
You need to make sure that it removes fluoride for sure. They all remove chlorine. That's they all agree. And if you just leave water sitting out for a while, the chlorine evaporates out anyways, but the fluoride is still in there. Now, the fluoride is known to cause people to be really calm and sedated. And right now we kind of need that out of everyone's system. Like, y'all are too calm sometimes. We have a problem. So I don't drink, so maybe that's why I'm just rebellious, because I'm not drinking fluoride. But fluoride is a very toxic substance, and it should not be in the water. And I do think that there is some legislation underway right now to try to get it out of all the city tap waters.
Even the toothpaste.
It's in the toothpaste. Yeah, I don't use fluoride toothpaste. I stay away from fluoride. If you eat right, you're getting it from earth. It's in the earth and it's in the right form. But what's in the city water is synthetic. It's not real fluoride anyway. So it's going into the brain and doing stuff to the brain. It's making people too sedate. The fluoride ends up calcifying on the thyroid and on the pineal gland. Now, one of the ways to get rid of that, going into detoxification, is iodine. You can put yourself on an iodine protocol for a while, and it'll remove all that garbage off your thyroid and pineal gland. If you go on detoxes, you can't go on like 6 different kinds at once. So think of healing your body is not just a one-time shot. You might have to, when I teach a detoxification class, we start with the colon, then we move up into the liver. You can't detox up here and expect it to go out there when back here hasn't been cleared out yet, because I've seen people bloat up when they start juicing and they haven't cleaned out the colon yet. So you have to go backwards up through the body and then finally reach the blood. So you're going to go through a phase and a phase and a phase and a phase. And every time you put yourself through a gallbladder cleanse or a kidney flush or a blood cleanse or anything like that, you are improving your health, and you need to expect a short period of a healing crisis right after that, because once you clear out whatever was in your body that was keeping it ill, now it gets to heal itself. And that's when you might have the fever, when you might have the headaches, you might have the skin breakouts and things like that. But once you get past that, then you can target another, then you can go another. And so you might have a 2 or 3 year process of going from point A to point Z, of reaching your best optimum health at any age. It doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are, you can have optimum health. But it's not going to be like a 2-week process. It's a process. And then once you get there, you have to maintain it. Like, you don't go back to your old ways. Why would you want to go back and clog everything up? So you stay there and then hopefully not have any disease. Yes.
You were talking about the detox of the liver and of the bile. And you said you had one of your somebody that did it, and it was amazing.
Mm-hmm. A gallbladder flush. Now, remember what we were saying about gallbladders is they respond to fat. All right. Your gallbladder stays quiet. If you juice vegetables, it's not going to do anything. But if you eat a steak with some fat in it, now your gallbladder is going to pump out some bile. So what you want to do with a gallbladder flush is build up pressure in the gallbladder. And that is usually what you do is you go all day long just eating fruits and vegetables all day long. And you let the bile store up in the gallbladder all day long. And then around 6 o'clock, this is actually the Dr. Hulda Clark gallbladder flush. She has her own website, Hulda, Hulda Clark. And she's got books about this, how to clear out gallbladder stones. Around 6 o'clock in the evening, you're going to drink a glass of water with some Epsom salt in it. Epsom salt is a muscle relaxer. Okay, and it's going to calm down the muscles and get them all nice and relaxed. And then an hour later, you do it again. An hour later, you do it again. So at 6, 7, and 8 o'clock, you're drinking a glass of water with maybe the instructions are in that cleanse, but it'll have like 1 or 2 tablespoons of Epsom salt. And then around 9 o'clock, you drink a shot of something with some olive oil in it or something like that, and then head to the bathroom because your gallbladder is now going to release a lot of bile all at once, and hopefully all the stones that are in there. So you're wanting to build the pressure up in the gallbladder and then drink. It's usually like lemon juice with olive oil, and you just drink a shot of that, and it will stimulate your gallbladder to go crazy.
This is one day only, you're saying?
Some people do it multiple times because you probably don't get them all at once, but I know that this guy had lymphoma, which he doesn't have lymphoma anymore. And he did it probably 3-4 times. Then he said the first one was the most impressive. I have done coffee enemas too. Coffee enemas are, how do you clean the liver? You clean the liver with coffee enemas, the gallbladder with fat, and then the kidneys are known to get kidney stones. Kidney stones can be dissolved with lemon. So, you know, there are different ways to clean the different organs, but you want to do them one at a time. You don't do it all at once. Your body can only handle so much at once. But yeah, every time you do something like that, you are improving.
Because I did something like that, Dr. Portia knew, but it's 6 days. It's not
Okay.
1 day, but you take juices and only vegetables and fruits, fresh. And the 6th day, you do this.
So you really
salt.
built it up. You really built up the pressure
Yeah.
then.
And I did feel good for a while, but starting now, you know, like it's been 2 months now or so, and now it started again.
So you might need to do it again.
I guess.
Yeah.
But it's
And then
not-
if you have a lingering thing like that never goes away, then what's happening is there is a traumatic experience or something in your past that is linked to that you might like. And I know this gets into the emotional cause of a chronic condition. If there's something from your past that affected a part of your brain that is linked to that organ, and they know that different traumas affect different parts of the brain in different ways. And this comes from German New Medicine. They can actually tell you, like, if somebody has a tumor on the liver, they know what the emotion is behind it, because anger is targeting the liver, and different emotions target different parts of the body. So if you have a memory from the past that every time you think about it, maybe you don't realize it, but your brain doesn't remember the difference between the day it happened and the moment you're thinking about it, maybe 10 years later. So every time you think about it, it's causing the same wave of energy to go to that same organ. And so, let's say you did like 10 gallbladder flushes and it's still not healed. You might have a lingering memory somewhere deep from your past that continues to trigger that until you resolve the memory and the memory no longer affects you, it's still causing the damage to that organ. They call that a lingering conflict. It's when something traumatic happens to you and you just can't quite get over it, and it's like the little trigger that keeps this problem going on and on and on. So we often have to work on the spiritual part to get the complete package of healing, the whole package. I'm not saying that's what it is, but if it keeps happening, that might be what it is.
What is Epsom salt?
Epsom salt is magnesium. And a lot of it, that's not so. Yeah, it just looks like white. It just looks like white crystal salts. And a lot of people, you can take baths in it to relax. If you have magnesium deficiencies, because it's magnesium, if you're in the bath water and your pores start to open up, it'll suck the magnesium. So it's a great way to get rid of a magnesium deficiency. Instead of popping pills, you can just take Epsom salt baths and your body will absorb that. At the same time, the magnesium is pulling toxicity out. So it's a transfer going both ways.
Can you drink it? Epsom salt? Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, you can.
And I wouldn't do it. You tell her.
The Epsom salt actually attracts more moisture to itself. So when you're drinking it, it'll bring a lot of water to the intestines. So you're going to be ready for a very nice bowel movement.
Oh, okay.
It softens the stools.
What about my daughter? She doesn't have a gallbladder, but she has multiple sclerosis, and she gets chemo for her multiple sclerosis.
Yes.
What does she do for the
Stop.
gallbladder?
Stop doing the chemo. She needs a completely different approach.
Yeah.
She needs a complete.
She doesn't have a gallbladder.
You can get around that. She at every meal she needs to be using digestive enzymes to replace what the gallbladder would have been providing, but the chemo is not helping at all. The treatments are probably not helping, and so she's going to need to completely do a different way of. She's going to need to do the holistic approach if she wants to really find health again.
There's a product called Ox Bile, and it's a supplement. You take it. So it's like adding that bile that you don't have to emulsify your fats, to break the fats so that your body can use them. So you take supplements of
What's
bile.
the name?
Ox Bile, OX.
So it's actually coming from an ox.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
there are many sources of artificial bile that could help you. And also for the gallbladder stones, since the liver and all the other organs of detoxification are working at night, it's very important if our first shot that we can have in the morning has lemon juice. When we have those cholesterol dehydrated that forms and the calcifications that form the stones, either in the kidneys or the gallbladder, lemon juice, when you drink, the first thing that you drink in the morning, it'll help your liver detoxify because it's working the whole night to pull all the garbage from our bodies, from our cells, from our blood, and it's ready, it's 4 in the morning.
Okay.
And then we go into eating something. So it changes from detoxification to, oh my gosh, I have to metabolize this food. So all the toxins that it collected, like, wait for later. And it accumulates, and never goes out. So when you flush the liver with the lemon juice in the morning, you're allowing it to discharge all that garbage, and then it can go later into
But
metabolism of
lemon
food.
will not be strong as a first thing in the morning.
You can put water in it, and some people also mix it with a little celery juice. So a little celery juice, lemon juice, and
Like
water.
one juice, one
Yes,
one
you
lemon,
could make it like
and
that.
celery, and
It depends on how much you need to break all that bile, like 1 or 2 lemons. Really, it's not gonna affect you. The more lemon you drink, the better for your body.
The lemon in the morning, does the same thing as the apple cider?
Yeah, it'll
It's pretty much the
very
same
very
thing,
similar.
the same thing. The problem is that when you have an irritated stomach problems,
Yes.
then you cannot have that much of that lemon, and that's what happened to me.
it irritates my
cannot
stomach
have
too.
because it irritates the stomach, and I
Okay.
feel it. It's like the coffee. I needed to stop
You
the
can
caffeine.
add some baking soda to it.
All baking
The
soda.
apple cider vinegar could be a lot more corrosive. I actually
Yes.
cannot take it because of that.
Yeah.
But my body does well with the lemon juice. But if
Okay.
it's too acidic, then I mix the celery juice
With celery juice.
with a little water and a little baking soda.
Oh,
It'll
okay.
be just very alkaline and gentle
Okay.
for your body.
I was told that you can have green apple
The green
juice
apple.
Mhm.
instead of lemon, or you can squeeze lemon on the apple juice, and that's
you
it.
can do all that combination. Your body will love you. It'll be very.
But not red. The red has
Yeah,
too
the
much
blue
sugar.
one.
Yeah.
Granny's meat.
All right, so we're going to end there. I encourage you to take this and somewhere on there write greekmedicine.net and go onto the website. You will notice that blood, bile, black bile, and phlegm, there's categories for every word on here. And there are different diseases that spike throughout the year based on the weather. And so, there are things that, like in the summertime is when or in the springtime when that blood is on there, that's when a lot of people start to get nosebleeds and the cheeks get pink. And there's not a lot of heavy duty problems going on, but there are issues like in the summertime, there's some things that happen. So if you're interested in knowing, how the cycles of the seasons are truly affecting your body, that greekmedicine.net is an extremely informative website. Okay.
What about knowing more about the holistic medicine, or Dr. Claudia, or you, how to get more information?
Well, I teach classes at this location, which is right here on the back of that brochure, which is my house, which is in St. Cloud, once a month. On the third Sunday of each month, we're doing my classes. And then I'm trying to come up here to do them also here so he can put them on video and put them on the website. But she's a doctor. So we work really well together. If somebody is really serious, she can do what she does and I can direct them with the rest of it. And it takes a team, but everything she does and everything I do is compatible with this book. And that's why the clinic is right here on that. So everything that, you know, I'm not a Muslim, but this is my medicine. This is how I plan to treat my body.
About the colon
Cancer.
Cleansing.
Cleansing.
Colon cleanse.
The fermented vegetables, because the colon is where all that bacteria really ends up, is in the colon. It's in the intestinal tract also, but in the colon, and you know, when you let out gas and you have that smell, that's bacteria digesting the poop in your colon. So if you have blockage in the colon, you need to get that bacteria back in there. Now, the modern doctors are using what's called fecal implants, where they take the healthy gut, the healthy poop out of somebody's colon that's healthy, and they inject it into someone who's not healthy. And then that person starts to take on the characteristics of this healthy person, because the bacteria, which was missing in this person's colon, is now in there and it's starting to thrive. Diverticulitis, they'll take part of your colon off. They'll surgically remove part of your colon to get rid of a little parcel of food that's stuck in the little crevices of your colon. Where if you just eat the fermented foods and let that bacteria get in there, it'll clean that all out. So the fermented foods is one. If you have a tumor in the colon, I would do the baking soda. If it's in the digestion tract, you can get it with water and baking soda. And baking soda will shrink a tumor on contact, because you're dealing with an acid and an alkaline. And when you put them together, it dissolves the tumor as an acid. So it's going to dissolve it. So there's fermented foods, there's baking soda, there's lemon. And then if you want to go and have a really good colon cleanse, colonics. And there's several places, we're thinking about having a colonics party, and we're going to all go have our... And they literally pump water into your rectum and up into the intestines, and then let it fall back out. And they do it again, and it falls back out. And they do it again. And every time it comes out, it's reaching up further into the intestinal tract, because there's a lot of stuff that gets stuck in, like with my mother. This would have been really helpful for her. But you normally drop 3 or 4 pounds in one visit of just fecal matter that's stuck in the colon. So you could find a colonics spa, and people say that they feel so amazing afterwards that it makes me want to go do it. So
Like right now, if you want to get fermented vegetables, how easy is to get it in the supermarket? Because I think that they sell there.
I make it. That's what this is.
Oh, okay.
That's what these are. This is what my business, and I deliver all over to Orlando. So you can go to my website, and I have all these different flavors. I have 4 different types of sauerkraut, bean and corn salsa, collards, carrots with parsley and garlic, red beets, kale kimchi. I mean, we've got a lot of fermented foods, and they all contain the same bacteria. It's just whichever recipe you like. And we also make sourdough bread, which is fermented bread, which is the right fiber for these bacteria. So my food fixes the gut. And remember that the mucus is coming from the gut. So if you can fix the gut, you get the mucus under control, and now you're in so much better shape.
And you can have it on an empty stomach or normal. It doesn't, because like I have a very sensitive stomach. Anything can hurt.
This is like baby food.
Baking soda and all these things, it hurts.
Yeah, fermented food shouldn't do that. You know when birds go and pluck a worm from the ground, and then they'll eat it and digest it and then spit it back up to feed to their babies? That's kind of what fermented food is. It's so pre-digested, because the bacteria have digested all the sugars and all of the food lectins that were in there. So our ancestors, who probably would not have thrived off of grains, because gluten is really not good for us, learned to ferment the bread so that now the gluten is not a problem. So if you eat fermented foods, you're eating basically pre-digested foods that your body no longer has to work at to digest. So you're pulling way more nutrition out of it. You're getting way more, you're getting the probiotics that the stuff at the store has probably been pasteurized a little bit. I don't know, but I know my stuff is good. So if you want fermented foods, just look at my website, and you can contact me through the information on there. All right. Okay. Thank you.